All right, so we're going to talk today about managing junk, spam, and even doing some organizational stuff within Outlook and some of the tools that Microsoft gives us to be able to accomplish a lot of these things. Microsoft does have some anti-spam filtering capabilities in the Office 365 cloud, also some anti-phishing capabilities, and a lot of that happens in the background. But nonetheless, stuff still gets through, and oftentimes it's just spam. It's just stuff that some people may consider legitimate, but you don't. And so how do we manage and handle that more effectively, as well as some junk? We're also going to talk about an interesting way to approach email, in the sense it's a little more advanced, but we'll talk about it in the middle, and it's called email whitelisting. So that'll be cool stuff. So the first thing we need to show first here is all about how to configure and work with junk mail. This is Amanda Milano's inbox. Amanda Milano is not a real person. If some of you may recognize Amanda because we used this particular account in one of our phishing tests several months ago. Amanda has since retired that particular activity, and she's just hanging out and helping us with stuff like this. So this is Amanda Milano's inbox, and as you can see, it has quite a bit of interesting stuff in it. There's stuff that a lot of people would consider junk, other stuff that people might consider legitimate, and she wants to be able to handle this junk and prioritize it. So we're going to use her inbox for this purpose. So how do we access the junk settings? Up here on this ribbon bar, when you're on the Home tab, you will notice this little person here with a red slash circle through them. This is where we access junk settings. If you click this down button, you will see a number of settings we'll go through in a minute, as well as junk email options. You can also access junk email options by right-clicking on a particular email and going down to junk, and you will see the same options available here as well. So there's a couple of different ways that you can get into these options to configure them. So we're going to go ahead and jump in here first, and we're going to start with junk email options. Talk a little bit about what this is. By default, Microsoft doesn't automatically filter what we would consider junk email. Junk email is what Microsoft may consider stuff that's maybe large distribution lists, something that's considered advertising, and even sometimes phishing. No automatic filtering is the default for Microsoft, but you can change that default. The first change that you can make under this setting is to change it to low. And what this does is that this turns on the automatic filtering, which means that things that Microsoft considers the most obvious junk, it's going to put in your junk email folder. So here's the junk email here. The basic setting that a lot of people use by default. And then what they do is they go take a look at their junk email folder every once in a while and see if there's anything in there they want to look at. Otherwise, they empty it. So that's the simplest way of doing it. The next one is called high. High actually will be a lot more aggressive, and it will look for things a little more aggressively and not pass things that it even thinks might be junk to your inbox. It's going to throw them in the junk folder. But as a result, some regular email might get caught in there as well. So if you do use this option, you want to be checking your junk mail regularly. We'll talk about ways around that, though, so you can make sure that important mail isn't populated there. And then we'll talk about safe lists in just a second, because safe lists is actually what we call email whitelisting. It's something I use. I really, really, really love it because it makes my life just so much easier, but it does require some tuning. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Down here, there's a couple of checkboxes. The first one I want to cover is this: warn me about suspicious domain names and email addresses. That's actually built into our tenant. As you know, we get this bar here that says email originated from outside of the county, and it will give you that warning by default. So those things, when you turn this on, that's checked by default. But this second checkbox here, actually the first one, is the one you want to be careful about. It says permanently delete suspected junk email instead of moving it to the junk email folder. Be very, very, very careful about enabling this. As a matter of fact, we don't recommend that you do this. Why? Because if Microsoft thinks it's junk, rather than throw it in the junk email, it's just going to wipe it off the face of the planet, and you'll never know it was there. But if a mistake was made and something that was thought to be junk was legitimate and you wanted to read it, you're not going to be able to. So this is something we do recommend that you not enable. So that's how you set up the junk email options within Outlook. Now, say for example, we decide we're going to stick with Hive just for this particular example here. And we're going to do a little bit of fine tuning on Amanda's email box. So here we have a number of different emails, and as you can see, she gets quite a little bit of junk email here. So we'll start maybe with this Learn Excel now. This is something that Amanda's not interested in, and so our best bet here is to tell Outlook that anything from this particular source, this advanceyourcareers.com, is junk. In other words, automatically. And we can do that by right-clicking on the email, going to junk, and choosing block sender. If we choose block sender, then basically it will prompt us. It just says it's been added to your block senders list, and the message has been moved to the junk folder. And therefore, it will show up in junk. So it allows you to be able to automatically say, this is just junk. I don't really want this. So if something shows up in your inbox, it's something that you can do relatively quickly. Say, for example, in this particular one, this is the same one. It'll automatically process these in the future. But let's pick a different one here. Let's I don't know. Here's this spotted here. Okay, so this is somebody at Gmail was sending some spam here. So we can go here and we can do a number of different things with blocking a sender. We can block the sender, or we can also block the sender's domain. Now, you probably wouldn't want to do this with gmail.com, but it is something where if you're getting a lot of email from a particular domain, say a vendor is sending you stuff, and this happens to me all the time. You get stuff from a vendor, but they change the from address all the time on you. So if you just do this and block the sender, they get around it the next time. So you can actually block the entire sender's domain and keep anything that comes from that domain, which is anything after the @ sign. You would keep that from being delivered to your inbox and getting thrown into your junk folder. Now, what happens if you go into junk and all of a sudden there's an email that is legitimate and you want to have that email delivered to your inbox on a normal basis and not get thrown in junk? Well, the way you would do that is to go up here and say never block the sender. And what happens is that sender is going to be added to your safe senders list. And then you can click OK. And then from there, anytime we get something from this particular individual, it's going to go to the inbox. You can also do not junk, and it will also mark it as not junk. But this is a little bit more reliable. It's just to never block sender because it'll make sure that there's no blocking that occurs. Under junk email options, there's another tab here called Safe Senders. And this is a list of email addresses or domain names that will never be treated as junk email. They will always get thrown into your inbox. And we'll talk about some other ways to manipulate some of the stuff that's going in your inbox a little later on. But this allows you to manage who those senders are. So you can automatically add people you email to the safe senders list, and you can also trust email from your contacts. By default, unless you are using this option, and we'll talk about this, safe lists only, by default, it will allow, you can have users that are in the safe senders here, but it will still allow, other users to show up in your inbox as well. This just guarantees that those users are going to make it into your inbox. That's if you're using either high or low filtering. This tab here is a little confusing. It's called Safe Recipients. And basically what that is if you're a member, say, of a distribution list, okay, and I'm not talking about an internal county distribution list. I'm talking about some outside entity that is sending email to, the group at myteam.com or whatever, or mygolfclub.com or whatever it might be, myfishingclub.com. And it gets thrown into junk because Microsoft thinks it's junk. You can actually add that user to the safe recipients as well. And so you can do that by clicking here and never block this group or mailing list. So if you're getting something from a mailing list or a group and it gets thrown in the junk mail, you can click this one and it will make sure that it gets put into this list here so that it automatically gets thrown into your inbox. Then the last tab here that I want to look at is this block senders tab. And here you can see the one that we blocked earlier, office skills at advanceyourcareers.com. This is where you manage block senders. So you can add people at will if you want. You can add either an email address or an entire domain. So if you do co.monterey.ca.us, then all of a sudden you're going to be blocking everyone in the county. For some of you, that might be a fun solution, but probably not approved. But basically, you can do all kinds of different things here to set up your junk email so that it's customized and you're blocking senders automatically. And then basically what you're doing with either high or low is especially with high, you're probably once a day at least looking at junk email, and with low, maybe a little bit less. The bottom line, it gives you quite a bit of capability there. Okay.
And you want to take two questions?
Yes, sure.
So one is, does the program learn, or do I have to, when I move the mail from junk to inbox?
It does most
Kinda.
of the time.
It tries.
It tries. Microsoft still hasn't gotten that particular artificial intelligence down, which is why really the sure way of doing it is right click and it's just right click and just go to junk and say never block the sender. That way it's like stamp of approval. This one here is good to go. We have had kind of off and on success of just simply moving this into the inbox, and in terms of what it'll do and what it'll not do.
Second question is, if you use the low option, do you have to do anything else?
No, you can just set it to low and then just monitor the one. It's low is generally the safest one without having to do a lot of fine tuning. Any others, John?
That's it so far.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to show you the way I like to do it, and it's not for everybody, but this actually is, and it takes a little while to tune. It took me about a period of a month of just monitoring my junk mail before it was really tuned exactly the way I wanted it to. And it doesn't mean that you never have to deal with junk mail ever again. You're still going to have a junk mail box, but this is what we call whitelisting. In other words, telling Outlook, look, these are the people I want to receive email from, and everybody else goes in junk. It doesn't mean that everybody else is something you're going to automatically delete or never look at. But junk becomes kind of this, I might look at it at 4:45 in the afternoon just for fun, or maybe first thing when I get in the morning, which is what I do. And if there's something that's new in there that I really want to, I'll whitelist it. But what it allows you to do is say, okay, all the good stuff is going to go in my inbox, and all the rest of it is going to go elsewhere, and it helps filter that. By doing this, it actually significantly decreases the amount of email that you have to deal with, especially when you're just going to your inbox. And the way you do this is you go here to junk email options and you choose safe lists only. And when you choose safe lists only, then basically everybody you receive email from is going to be in safe senders. Now, obviously, the County of Monterey is probably an important one, and you can do that by just doing @co.monterey.ca.us. And now all of a sudden we've got everybody in the county taken care of, and then you can just manually add the ones later that you want to. So we can go back here to the inbox, and we're going to go to Nick Gerard's here, and we're going to say, yep, Nick is somebody I want to, so never block this sender. And oh, it's internal to the organization already. That one's already covered. So, we'll just pick another one here and just say this one. We want to go ahead and never block that sender, and it will add it automatically to the safe senders list. And so that particular user, and you do this over a period of, a couple days until it starts to get fine-tuned, and then you monitor your junk email. What I like to do is see how the favorites are up here in the inbox. I like to take junk email and throw it up there. and also anything else that I really want to look at. So this will tell me, okay, this is the stuff that got delivered, and maybe once a day now I'm going to look at my junk email. When you're doing whitelisting, though, you want to monitor junk email in the first week or so on a more regular basis. And if it's junk, leave it there. And if it's not junk, basically all you got to do is highlight it and just go never block sender. And that way, you are whitelisting who you want to receive email from. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to receive email from somebody new. It just means it's going to get thrown down here at first. And if this isn't for everybody, it really isn't. But if you have a certain pattern of who you're receiving email from and who you expect to receive email from at work, then it makes it easy because you can just go through and whitelist everything, and then everything else gets thrown in junk. And junk becomes a place that I'll look at it when I have time. Okay, so let's take this a little further. And this is, even if you're doing the normal filtering, you're back here and you're going to do low filtering. That's fine. That's great. Let's talk about some ways you can automatically control your inbox as well and help you filter and prioritize the email that you want to look at. And then maybe put email that is important but not urgent somewhere else. You know, put your urgent and important email first. Maybe put email that comes from distribution lists. We all get some great stuff from the health department. You know, I send out stuff a lot too. If it's not an emergency email, you can actually filter on the subject and do this as well. So this is something that you can do. One of the things that I've done here with Amanda's inbox is I've created a couple of different subdirectories or subfolders under her inbox, just right under. I got one called boss. I got one called distributions. I got one called to be read. These are just examples. As a matter of fact, I'll create shortcuts up here for that so that I have access to them more easily. And you can really make up any folder that you want. You can create a new folder here just by right-clicking, just use new folder. And that new folder, we can call it, we'll just call it health flyers. Okay. And there's another one, health flyers. So now what we can do is we can tell Outlook that when it receives an email that fits any of these descriptions, maybe not, boss is probably important, okay? But some people still use this, and I'll talk about it. But let's talk about distributions first. So if it receives something that's a distribution, and we'll call this a distribution list, okay? This is something that is not, I don't need this in my inbox right away. I can look at it a little later on, but I kind of want it out of the way. And then when I have some time, I'll go into this folder and take a look at it. Well, how do I tell Outlook to automatically put that in this folder? I do it by using Outlook rules. We've talked about Outlook rules in the past when we've talked about security stuff, because bad guys use them if they get control of one of our accounts. They use them to set up rules so that they can send out their phishing emails. And if anybody replies to those phishing emails, the bad guy will say, send the reply to deleted items. And then the bad guy will monitor deleted items, but of course the user's not going to. That's an example of an Outlook rule. In this particular case, what we can do is we can choose this particular distribution list here and go down to rules. We right click it and go down to rules. And we're going to create a rule. Now, we can also click on this first one, which is a real simple way of saying always move messages from HR morning. And it'll bring up a list of folders, and we're going to say distributions, and we're going to say okay. And it'll run it on the inbox. And now all of those emails just went into the distribution list, and any future email that comes from that particular distribution list goes in there. It didn't disappear. It's not in junk email, but it is out of your inbox and in a place where you can look at it later. So, okay, I got 65 of those, and we'll deal with those later. But that's something that's important. We can do the same thing. I used health flyers as an example. We get the flyers from health. If you want to do that there, those are important information that everybody should read. But again, it might be something that you don't have time to in the middle of your day, so you want to look at it a little later. You can also do it based upon some other options as well. You can actually customize these. And I'm going to right click on Nick Gerard's email. Nick is one of our staff. And I'm going to go to rules, and I'm going to choose create a rule, which is going to allow me to create a customized rule. So an example of how you might use this is, say, for example, you want to filter out, say some of the stuff that I send out for awareness purposes. You want to put it under a folder called security awareness, and you want to look at it maybe later on in the day or at lunchtime. But if the subject says official alert from information security, which we have sent out recently, say, for example, it's from, we'll pretend that this is me because I don't have that email. We'll say from Dan Kern, subject contains emergence or official alert, right? So it's important. Okay. Then basically you can tell Outlook to play a selected sound, display a new item alert window so that it pops up so you see it right away. So that's a way to be able to tell Outlook. If I get an email from a person, and you may just do this with all the emails that come from your boss, just from your boss, I want to display the new item alert in the window and play a sound so that I automatically know exactly when that pops up. Something that allows you to, be alerted on that. The other thing you can do is set up a rule that just throws it in a boss folder if you want to do that. The other thing you can do is click on this advanced options here. And there's a lot of conditions here built into this that you can take a look at when you have time. So if it's from Nick Gerard and it's sent only to me, that's an interesting one. I set up rules so that if oftentimes if we're doing a phishing test, and if people forward the phishing test only to me, I have a rule that's set up that if it has the subject of the phishing email in it and it's sent only to me, that means the user's forwarded it to me instead of the group security, right? So if it comes only to me, I might not be in the office and be able to reply to it. And so what I have is a rule set up that if that is the case, to reply and say, hey, please send this to security instead. So there's a lot of things that you can do here with this. What you want to do with the message, you can move it to the specified folder, permanently delete it, clear the message flag, play a sound, do all kinds of stuff by creating these rules. But for the purpose of today's demonstration, what I wanted to show you is that you can easily filter your rules or your email using rules and have those emails automatically get sent into subfolders of your inbox. And then you can deal with those subfolders later and keep just your important stuff coming in your inbox. And then if it's super important, say it's from your boss, you can have it flash something on the screen as well. So there's a lot of flexibility that Outlook rules give you. And again, this is separate from the junk mail stuff. Junk mail is managed the way we talked about before, but you can do a lot of things with Outlook rules and some customizing in order to make it so your inbox is a little less cluttered. Make it so that you know that when you're looking at your inbox, you're really seeing just the real critical important stuff. We do this with logs. So for example, we get a lot of logs from our servers. Some of the logs are actually alerts, okay, coming from, say, for example, a workstation is compromised. So I have it set up so for those, they automatically get a flag, okay? And so I can immediately see that it's a flagged email and then it's something important. And I've set up a rule that says if it comes from this particular service that's monitoring our workstations, and if it says a workstation's been compromised or something similar, the wording that we use, then it'll automatically flag it for me. So I will see it immediately when I take a look at my inbox. But we also have a lot of logs that are like more, let's check it out later. And those we definitely use Outlook rules in order to throw them in subfolders and then deal with them either first thing in the morning or maybe twice a day or however, whatever habit we've gotten into. The beauty of this is it does allow you to see these in a glance and then be able to jump from there. If you're using a phone and you're using Outlook on the phone, then basically you're going to have a situation where by default, it's going to show you the inbox. You need to click on inbox and it'll show you the subfolders right underneath that if you've thrown them in as favorites. And so you'll be able to see them as well.
And we do have a question.
Yeah.
So if an email came from 3 different people, but it has the same subject. Now, I believe you don't have to define what the from address is in your rule. You can just say anything.
You do not. So if you go into rules and you create a rule, by the way, also, if you created a rule and you want to change it, you can go here to rules, go to manage rules and alerts. And here's the rules that we created earlier. You can change this rule. can edit the settings. You can, automatically add something to it. Like here's the high priority, which we do for our alerts that I mentioned. You can mark it as low priority if you'd like.
As a remember, low priority will do encryption.
If you're sending the email, yes.
If you're sending the email, so
yeah,
be careful with low
be
priority.
careful with this one, but everything else here you can do all kinds of fun stuff with. So, and then this shows the details of this. When you're going into a particular rule to create it, you can just choose the subject if you want. You can choose everything that's sent only to me, but you can also go into advanced options. So you don't have to click any of these, just go right into advanced options. And then this gives you a longer list of the conditions to check. So, if it's how's it going on the subject, I can do here, sent only to me. This is interesting where my name is in the to box. If your name is if you get put in the CC box a lot, you may want to deal with those emails differently. So here's the one where it says my name is in the CC box. So you may want to filter those differently. You may want to throw them somewhere else. Who knows? There's so many different things you can do. Specific words in the body of the email address, specific words in the recipient or sender's address. If it has an attachment, maybe you want to throw stuff that has attachments somewhere. Who knows? So there's a lot of different capabilities that you have here. And then, of course, what do you want to do with the message also gives you tremendous capabilities too. Assigning it to a category. If you're using categories for filtering or for searching, which I do, categories allow you can customize categories. And this is kind of outside of the scope of this particular presentation, but you can read about it online. And then categories make it easier. So if I want to find everything, for example, if somebody sends me a email that has some documentation in it, I will categorize that. I will use the category button. I'll categorize it as reference material. Okay. And then I can throw it in whatever folder I want to. But if I want, I can find all the reference material by searching for all the reference material, and it will bring up everything no matter where it exists. It doesn't have to live in a particular folder. So we can mark it as importance. We can play a sound. We can do all kinds of other things. So we're going to choose this action here, and we're going to, let's see, we're going to clear the messages flag. The last one is, are there any exceptions? And this is where you would add exceptions to your rule. So if you have a rule that applies to a number of different email messages, maybe you want to say, okay, well, we'll do it for all of those except maybe one account, or except if it's marked as sensitive, or here's the two in the CC box. So it gives you a lot of power to go through here and, except if it's received in a particular date span. So there's a lot of power here within this to create rules, to customize, to handle your email, at least when it initially arrives, in some automated fashion, so that you can have it put wherever you want, or just maybe you want email from a certain thing, but you really don't need to look at it, but you want to save it. Perfect way to just file it away automatically for it. You don't have to do it anymore. You can have Outlook do it for you.
There's a follow-up on the one about the subject line, and I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Can I select 3 individual users for the same subject? And I'm not quite sure if they mean and or, but you can have multiple people in the from line, right?
Yes, and then you can just do do it with the subject only, or you can, if you have a certain subject that's consistent, you can have it in the subject or the body.
You can click on Nick's, the from Nick, and type.
Oh, yes. So you can click on Nick's name here. For example, here's a condition. So we're going to keep that with how's it going in the subject. It says from Nick Gerard. Down here, it shows the rule description, and these are clickable, so you can make some changes. So you click on Nick Gerard, and you can also add other people from the county here. Everybody who's in this particular unit, you can add them as well. And there you go. So now when you've created this rule, this is a public group. So I picked the wrong one. Let me just pick, well, no, it's there. So it's 100 XY unit staff. You can edit that out.
I'm curious about this. Try a foreign email address. Can you add something outside the county?
Yes.
Yep.
So
I thought
now
you
the
could.
rule says if it comes from Nick or me or this email address here with this how's it going in the subject, then we can move on to what we want to do with it. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, John, for co-hosting with me. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.